This meeting is being recorded.
You know, it's good to do Zoom mobile every once in a while. It keeps you humble. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Forward Maryland. My name is Bill Woodcock.
And I'm Steve Hunt. Happy weekend, everybody.
And this is why this show doesn't have a producer, or maybe it should have a producer, because we cannot be trusted with this technology. And I'm going to roll Zoom right under the bus. We were doing the silent movie thing for about a half hour before we started recording this thing. Steve, how many devices did you have trying to log on fruitlessly? Or is it like 18?
It felt like 18. I think it was only 3, but it felt like 18. There's that meme I see on Twitter sometimes with the cat going like this. That was me trying to log on to Zoom or find a computer or device that would actually allow us to do this. So not a good, not a roaring start to this particular episode. But hey, it's only uphill from here, or downhill, or whatever the hell they say.
Well, we're going to make up for it. And Steve, the only cat memes I pay attention to are the one with the desperate housewives and the white cat eating the salad. So other than that, cat memes are dead to me. But what is not dead to us, in fact, very much alive, although a lot of races were certified yesterday, are the Maryland elections. Nationally, the predicted red wave turned into a red drip. Republicans did take control of the House of Representatives, albeit barely. It'll probably end up being about a 5-vote margin, meaning 2 or 3 votes can swing legislation. Democrats are going to retain the Senate regardless of what happens in the runoff in Georgia. It'll be either 51-49 or 50-50 with Vice President Harris casting the vote. And also statewide in Maryland, not a lot unexpected, but a couple things that are surprising, not surprising. I mean, all of the statewide Democrats won big. So congratulations, Maryland. You've elected your first African-American to statewide office, your first female to statewide office. Incidentally, the first Asian American in Lieutenant Governor Miller to statewide office. And in fact, you elected your first 2 African Americans to statewide office, and Governor-elect Moore and AG-elect Brown. What is surprising, not surprising to me, are the races and the county exec races in Frederick and Anne Arundel County, which just literally Friday and Thursday, respectively, turned towards the Democrats, Jessica Fitzwater and Stuart Pittman. Surprising, not surprising, because I figured they would go either way, but a little bit surprising because I figured if there would be a red drip anywhere in Maryland and any of the purple regions, it would be in Frederick and Anne Arundel, yet even there, Democrats held serve. So, Steve, before we dig into any of these general races, and we're going to go, we're going to really focus on state and then local to Howard County in this episode. Any general thoughts about what went on at the federal level or anywhere else around the country?
Well, to your point, Bill, on a national level, it was a good day for Democrats, or in the case of the House, a not horrible day. Basically, in the House of Representatives, the Democrats and Republicans switched roles, where the Democrats had a 5-seat majority. It looks like Republicans are going to have the same 5-seat majority. The difference being, instead of the majority being led by the now retired from her job, Nancy Pelosi, and shout out to, I think, one of the greatest speakers I've ever seen and leaders I've ever seen. It's now going to be Kevin McCarthy, who, we just talked about cat memes. He's going to be herding a whole lot of cats, and some feral ones at that. So good luck, Kevin McCarthy. Congratulations, or something. And obviously in the Senate, again, as you said, the majority will hold, which I think if you were going to have one of the two and you're Joe Biden, you probably want the Senate as opposed to the House, and hopefully they get that 51st seat. But just a bigger statement nationally very quickly, Bill, is it was a good day for Democrats, but it was also a good day for democracy. And the reason I say that is you had a whole lot of election deniers on the ballot, a whole lot of people who did not believe in our system of government. There was an analysis of, I think it was, I don't know how many, swing or battleground states, whatever term people use for that sort of thing. And there were 34 races that involved election deniers. And yes, they were all Republicans. So I'm not going to both sides of this thing. It was a bunch of Republicans who, your Carrie Lakes and your Doug Mastrianos and those types. And out of those 34 races, the election deniers won 7. And they lost the other 26. The final of the 26 was Carrie Lake, who, of course, on brand, is refusing to concede.
Who non-conceded.
Non-conceded. And oh, by the way, that analysis doesn't include the 2 that we had right here in the great state of Maryland, who also lost. So I think, it was a positive that people saw past the rhetoric and past the garbage, realized the threat that some of these people were, and said, hell no. Nah. So, I say congratulations, voters of America, for showing up and showing out. So that's really my national comment. We'll see what the next 2 years look like. I mean, we've already seen a preview of what the Republican House is going to look like. They spent a year talking about inflation and crime and the border, and they had 3 news conferences about Hunter Biden's laptop. So, you and I are both old enough to remember the 90s. Clearly, they either are not old enough to remember or have no sense of history, because the same tactic failed miserably. Just ask Newt Gingrich. So, again, Kevin McCarthy, have fun with this guy. So
I'll tell you what's on Hunter Biden's laptop right now. I mean, people are looking for controversy about in this episode. And incidentally, no takes on the Columbia Association in this episode. So for anybody looking to watch to see what an Ann Arbor Trust board member has to say, no takes on the Columbia Association. So stop watching right now, unless if you really care, and go do what you do. So anyway, I'll tell you what's on Hunter Biden's laptop. 9 versions of solitaire. I mean, that basically is what's on Hunter Biden's laptop.
So he's like the rest of us.
I don't understand why he's become this, symbol of democratic graft and corruption. I'll be honest. I believe there's some bias there because he happens to be a person in recovery. And I think that the indirect assumption is that he's somehow a weak human being and would be subject to foreign influence, domestic influence, whatever. I mean, remember, he was the subject of Trump's arm twisting of Zelensky, what happened to get him impeached the first time. But that needs to stop, and I hope that blows up in their face, just like an Acme Dynamite kid in the face of one Wile E. Coyote, super genius. So hopefully that will happen. On the national side, and I think I want to make a passing mention, some great wins. My national political crush, Gretchen Whitmer, won re-election very, very handily, as well as all those fantastic ladies in the great state of Michigan.
Oh yeah,
you mentioned Katie Hobbs, who I met about 30 years ago at a Young Democrats of America convention. It was wonderful to see her win. And it was wonderful to see, a Democrat take back over the reins in Massachusetts. And yet there were, and of course, Catherine Cortez Masto's success and others. But it was sad on some levels. Primarily, I'm sad for Stacey Abrams. Sad that election did not work out for her. Sad, not so sad for Beto O'Rourke. I mean, this was kind of what we thought. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be Beto's last stand, but I just need to form an advocacy group, and I think that the the gun rights, the gun movement could stand an energetic liberal champion. So, Beto, please go think about that and have at it. And Tim Ryan, the congressman from Ohio, I really had a feeling he would do better. Mike Frankel, the former admiral, did very well in Iowa. So that is our friend of the podcast's Monica Biddix's candidate. Oh, and I would be remiss to not mention the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the Fetterman win and the Josh Shapiro win. And so keeping that state blue. So, I'm not sure how many of our prognostications worked out. I know we both messed up in Georgia, but we got Texas right, and I think we got Pennsylvania right. I think we got Arizona and Nevada right. But that's the way the cookie crumbled. So some switching of the deck chairs in both parties, and especially with two of the more charismatic Democrats from the last decade, Stacey Abrams and Beto O'Rourke. It's going to be interesting to see what both of their next acts are.
Hey, Bill, let me help you out on one thing, though. You talked about your crush on Gretchen Whitmer.
It's the leather jackets. It's the accent.
You know what? I'm going to take it to a whole nother level. I have a total crush on the ladies I call the Michigan Three. So it's Governor Whitmer, Attorney General Nessel, and Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. All three of these ladies are like if you want the definition of badass. Those three are, and they even did like a pose at a function, doing like the Charlie's Angels pose.
I saw that.
I may have to put that on a poster and put it on my wall. These three are like that. So
I saw that.
Don't feel bad about the Whitmer feel. I'm all about the Michigan Three. But that said, you're absolutely right about some of the good and bad and sad. And I will also add two real quick things. One, I don't know if I'm sorry or not sorry for the state of Florida. I feel bad that you got what you got, but you know what? You voted for it, so you got it. My message to Democrats is, Florida just needs to be in the dustbin, trash bin of strategic and monetary and fiscal and financial investment for a while. There's still some pockets that you can invest in, but it's going to be a while there. It's a red state. Thank you very much. The two that I think Democrats nationally should keep their eye on, you mentioned Iowa, where General Franken ran very well. And I think that with some of the other, state and local folks in Iowa, that's one to keep an eye on. And North Carolina, where Sherry Beasley ran very well for Senate. So I think North Carolina has Virginia/Georgia potential. So if, Jamie Harris of the DNC were to talk to me, and I don't think he is, I would say whatever you're throwing at Florida in 24 and maybe even a few cycles after that, you might want to throw some at Carolina and also at Iowa, because I think there's some potential there. And I'm sure, our friend Monica Biddix would agree that Iowa, it certainly has some potential as far as what could be picked up, going forward. So,
well, one has to think about electoral votes, and I'm going to speculate that North Carolina and Iowa together would about equal Florida.
Yeah.
So, why not? But anyway, on to more close to home things. Steve, did anything surprise you? Let's go through the statewide. Anything surprise you about the statewide elections?
Nothing really surprised me. I was surprised, not completely, but I was surprised at the margin in the comptroller race. I thought Barry Glassman might run a little stronger because he seemed to be the one adult in the room. The governor's race and the attorney general's race were complete and utter blowouts, and deservedly so. The Republican candidates were horrible, not just as candidates, but on a whole bunch of other levels. So that was the one thing that surprised me. You talked about Anne Arundel and Frederick County, and because of that, I believe with all the tallies come in, Democrats are going to actually pick up seats in the House of Delegates and the state Senate. I did not see that coming, but some wins of people that we know, including friend of the podcast, Heather Bagnall. Congratulations, Heather. She got her race called. Again, Pittman and Fitzwater. I actually felt a little more confidence about Fitzwater than Pittman, just because Frederick seems to just do that in terms of certain, countywide races. But yes, and also back in Anne Arundel, Sarah Elford, I believe she won again. So the only thing that surprised me, the two things were the comptroller race was as big a blowout as it was, and then the fact that Democrats seemed to pick up seats. And I think that was all because the top of the ticket on the Republican side, I don't know if it's reverse coattails or drag or albatross. I know there's a lot of terms there, but I think that brought the whole party down. And I think the Maryland Republican Party's got some soul searching to do. I don't know how much they're going to do, because one of the leading candidates for the GOP chair, I believe, is the lieutenant gubernatorial, now former candidate, Jordana Schiffinelli. So I don't know if that bodes well for the Maryland Republican Party, but they got problems, man. And they, I don't know what they're going to do, especially if they're going to let the Trump wing take over the party and throw the Hogan wing out completely.
So I had dinner earlier this week with another friend of the podcast. We have lots of friends on this podcast. How can anyone dislike us, Steve? But former First District congressional candidate and one of next week's guests, Jennifer Pingley.
Ah.
And we were speculating over who the new Maryland GOP chair would be. And Ms. Schiffinelli's name came up, but not seen as one of the top candidates. The two who we were betting about were this gentleman, Tim Fosenbacher, who I believe he ran for Congress previously in Dutch Rubersperger's district, and Andy Harris's wife, who is also a candidate. And I would actually have to give the inside track. I know Jennifer and I disagreed on this. I think she thought it would be Fosenbacher. After a lot more thought about this last night and today, I actually think Harris's wife is going to be, and I forget her first name, I apologize, but would be the inside candidate, because I don't see the Republican Party in this state doing anything but keeping a hard right tactic.
Yeah.
I mean, God bless them. They're just going to keep going right over that cliff. And they will in grand Thelma and Louise style. To your point as to why, how do Democrats actually pick up seats in all of this, in this supposed red wave? It's a out and out, and we'll get to the local Howard County stuff in a minute, but it's an out and out thorough repudiation of what the Republican Party is in the year 2022. And I think if you look at it as just a repudiation of Trump and Trumpism, I think you're not seeing the whole picture, because that surely is part of it. But I believe that what is becoming more apparent is that Republicans stand for nothing. And, people might not like high gas prices, inflation. Joe is a little bit listless and he's old. But the fact of the matter is that what the Democrats stand for. And I don't think that Democrats do a perfect job of messaging. I'm not even sure they're doing an above average job of messaging, but surely it is a good enough message in order to be very successful in this year's elections. Part of my issue with the Obama administration has always been that while the election of Barack Obama was a huge moment for this country, those ensuing 8 years saw a lot of decay in what we call the farm team. Over 1,100 state legislative seats flipped from Democrat to Republican. I believe something like over 30 chambers of legislatures in states across the country flipped from Democrat to Republican. At one point, I think there were only about 15 or 16 Democratic governors in the country. Most of them were Republican. Now, I believe I saw that the number is now 26-24 in favor of Republicans. I don't know how many state legislative seats that Democrats gain nationwide, but the farm team is starting to look better. And I have to admit that, this focus on, solutions that they're not moderate, they're not progressive, but they are right. And, you look at some of the people, and again, we're going to get into this, but Heather Bagnall, Natalie Ziegler out here in good old Howard County.
Yep.
A lot of people are running on, Katie Freihester, who won going away in her state Senate race.
Yep.
They're focusing on solutions that work for people on the grassroots level. And this is what Democrats should have been doing for so long. I'm so happy to see them doing it. We just gotta keep it up.
Well, the big thing, Bill, that I see is it's not about messaging, whether it's right or wrong, but that you actually have one. And, again, years ago, I got into arguments with a group when I basically said that Democrats were too busy high-fiving themselves over Obama and not paying attention to any damn thing else. And I got a lot of pushback on that from a certain local Howard County group that I won't mention here. But they're like, oh, no. I was like, yeah, that was the case. But you're right. The results are the results. And we talked about Michigan. They flipped both sides of the legislature. For the first time in 40 years, Democrats basically control everything in Michigan. Not only did the big three win, they had the House and the Senate. Pennsylvania flipped one of their houses. I can't remember which one they flipped, but Pennsylvania flipped one. North Carolina didn't flip one, but they turned enough seats that there's no longer a supermajority in the state Senate in North Carolina. So you're right. It's now, and you got to give credit to Jamie Harrison, who takes a lot of heat because if you're in that job, you just do. But he talked about a 50-state strategy, and state legislatures are being flipped. And you're right, that split now 26-24. That's the way it's supposed to go. And so hopefully there's a lesson learned. There's a hell of a bench now. I mean, we talked about Whitmer. I swear, folks, we won't talk about Gretchen Whitmer anymore.
Oh, I have.
But Bill and I
have at least one more thing to say.
Okay, but we can do that all night. But you have a Whitmer sitting out there. If you heard Josh Shapiro's election night speech, that's a star in the making right there. I mean, everybody was talking about Buttigieg or Harris or this one. Josh Shapiro, welcome to the chat. Tim Ryan, I don't think is going anywhere. I think he's still a player, even though he lost because he ran the good fight. And oh, by the way, he ran it the way Democrats should look at what he did in Beasley in North Carolina. That's the playbook. So there's a bench now. And you could not say that years ago. Or you could say maybe Biden shouldn't step aside because there ain't nobody home. There's some people home now. And so, it should continue. And I'm glad to see it. So, state and local, there's some work going on there. And you're right. I think that even the far left on the Democratic side took a bit of a smackdown because you look at some of the people who we're talking about, they're not way out to the left. I would call it progressives, but I would not call them far left. A Natalie Ziegler, a Katie Freihester locally, even look at our school board that I think if you looked at our 4 candidates for school board, the 2 people on the farthest extremes, left and right, both lost. So I think the middle ground is there. And if Democrats continue to do things the way they're doing, they'll be able to hold that coalition together into 24 and be successful.
Well, remember though, Steve, I mean, I think I agree with your premise, but I will say that remember, I mean, of course, in the general election, the people who are running are the people who won the primary. So, somebody like Katie or Natalie, I mean, they won their primary. I mean, Katie was unopposed. Natalie was, I mean, there were 3 candidates in the primary and 9B, as we know. Yeah. But, let's look at the district I believe we both live in, which is 13.
Yeah.
There were only 2 Republicans who ran against the Team 13 slate, but the Team 13 slate won by a bigger margin
Yeah.
than they have in the past. And I didn't see one single damn piece of Team 13 material in my mailbox this year. I mean, I normally do because I am a super Dem, naturally. But I saw it in the primary. I did not see it for the general election. They kept their powder dry, and I would imagine that Senator Gazone and company sent some of their largesse out around the state and helped in some other places. So they were not afeared of the Republicans. And, you look at in the new district where former delegate from, representing District 12, Eric Ebersole won. I mean, that was a smoking, in a portion of Baltimore County where you would figure it would be more competitive. So, yeah, it was all up and down the line. And before we get into Howard County races, I'm just going to tell you all, and I'm telling everybody right now, what I want for my birthday, which is not until July, is a cameo from Gretchen Whitmer. I want Governor Whitmer to be on Cameo, and I want her to refer to me as her favorite honorary Michigander, because I absolutely love it when she says Michigander. So yeah, I'm kind of done with my worship of Gretchen Whitmer now, and there's at least one person, I think more, who are watching this podcast who are just shaking their damn head at me.
Yeah, so, Jason Booms is online too. Speaking of wanting to be,
I will let Jason speak for himself with his opinions on Gretchen Whitmer, but he and I have talked about her. They are fellow Spartans.
I'm just saying, you want to be the favorite Michigander from down here, and
honorary Michigander.
Oh, okay, because he's the real deal. So that would work.
Honorary. Bill, you are my favorite honorary Michigander. Oh, that would set my heart aflutter. Wow. So Howard County. So we have the second term of Calvin Ball. We have the end of the political career, ignominious and flailing out as it was, of Alan Kittleman. We have an extraordinarily, surprisingly, and what if we'd have just put some more money into this campaign, 46% showing by Joan Pontius in District 5. We have a Democratic sweep in the state legislature. I believe Trent Kittleman is the only Republican who's going to be serving in our delegation this next year.
Did she actually make it? Because I know between her and Chao Wu, it was close when they were doing the final counts, like 50 votes or something or another.
Was it between Kittleman and Chao Wu? Because I thought it was between Ziegler and Chao Wu.
No, as of Friday, Ziegler had pulled ahead to where matter of fact, Natalie even put out she's even put out messages and statements saying, "Hey, thanks everybody, looking forward to it." I think it's a small margin between Kittleman and Wu. And I think
tell you what, why don't we do this? Why don't, while you tell me what you think of the Howard County results, why don't I scurry onto this tool called the internet and try to get the latest?
Okay. Well,
hopefully I'm surprised that neither of us know, because normally we're both good at knowing these things.
Well, as of Friday, it was very close. Yeah, as of Friday, it was very close, and I don't know if they certified it. I think there were still some votes coming in from Montgomery County. Howard has already certified, but Montgomery still had some votes coming in. It was very close, and the thinking is that Montgomery County section will be good for Wu, but we'll see. But it looks like Ziegler's good to go. But my thoughts just from the beginning, or going from the top here, is we talked about repudiation of, we'll just call it the Republican brand as it exists today. I think that filtered down to Howard County. I think that, again, we talked about this last week. I don't know whether it was the candidate himself or people around him that convinced Alan Kittleman that he needed to run, quite frankly, a negative campaign. One that I don't know that I've seen Alan Kittleman run as far as blatantly negative, But the voters looked and said, you got nothing. You got nothing except for throwing darts at Calvin Ball. What are you going to do? And there was no message. There was no, what even anything remotely resembling a vision. It was just Calvin Ball's horrible, so replace him with me. And not that the Ball campaign is one for the books. We talked about it last week, so I won't repeat what Bill and I talked about the last time around. I forget when our last podcast was, but this was not one where I think necessarily Calvin Ball won. Hey, Alec Killerman lost. And again, I say, if this is the last chapter of the story of the career of one Alec Killerman, it's a pretty sad one because it could have been better. It should have been better. And, he decided to go the way he went, playing footsie, quite frankly, with Trumpism. I don't think he went all in like some candidates, but he certainly played a little footsie with it in some of his rhetoric about SROs and the Liberty Act and things of that nature. And he paid the price for it. So, I think this should be the end of the line, but we'll see. As far as the council, we got a bunch of big yawn, which was not a surprise considering the primaries. You had, districts 1, 2, and 3 went pretty much as I think we all thought they were going to go. District 4 was unopposed, so there was nothing to talk about there. And District 5, the only thing I would say there, Bill, is one, it was about the same as last time. I think Joe Pontius ran about the same as China Williams in 2018. I thought that Williams, quite frankly, was a better candidate than China. I thought that China Williams was a better candidate than Joe Pontius. But I think that one, money, and two, I think the other thing going on there was a matter of, I'm going to say, some of the internal fighting that still goes on with the Howard County Democratic Party. And I think that, Pontius ran on a platform that really talked about development. And I think that was not looked upon favorably by the, I don't want to call them party bosses. I don't know what I want to call them, but I think that a lot of the resource issues was due to that. So, guys, we're going to hang on for 1 second here. We just got a note from Bill. I saw his screen thing fade out, so I don't know if he's here or not. So, guys, you're going to have to bear with me for a second. Oh, there he is. Well, hang on. Hey, Bill. Bill, I can't hear your audio.
All right, Steve, you're still there.
You dropped off. I'm talking and you go away, and I'm like,
I don't know what the hell is going on.
We may want to, you know what? We may want to start over because there was a big.
No, we don't. I mean, if you're talking, Zoom will pick it all up. It was just that I dropped off.
Okay, and I
anyway, continue your thought, please. I apologize. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, you just bounced off, man. But I can't remember where I was. Well, I was talking about the District 5 race and the fact that I think you're right. There's some resource there as far as the party not investing. Pontius ran about the same as China Williams. I thought China Williams, quite frankly, was a better overall candidate. I think that if you want to talk about issues in the Howard County Democratic Party, that race and the lack of resources exposes it because, Pontius ran on a platform, anti-development, if you want to call it that. And I don't know that curried favor with those who are in charge of the purse strings within the Howard County Democratic Party. And so I think that there were people who did not want her to win. I'll just say it straight up because they did not necessarily want a council that consisted of a trio of Pontius, Walsh, and Young. I honestly think there were Democrats in Howard County who were perfectly fine with David Youngman being back on the council as opposed to the Pontius, Young, Walsh axis basically having a majority of the votes over a Rigby and Jones. And well, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to like that I said that, but I think there were some Democrats, especially some of the people, the bosses, if you want to call them that, sitting back saying, we're not in love with Youngman, but we'd rather have him than Pontius right now.
Well, Steve, I mean, this is not the first time we've had this conversation, and I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit. There are Democratic leaders who are in love with David Youngman. There are, because he's their way on development and growth. And I'm sorry, but I believe in the Democratic Party, and I believe that the Democratic Party provides the best great hope for this country, this state, this county. It's not to say Republicans don't have good ideas, but very rarely in my political experience, which is about 35 years now, have I seen where Republicans are ready to govern. I have seen, especially state and local, all Republicans do is bitch, bitch, and bitch some more. And while we're speaking about bitch, very few bitch more, in my experience in local politics, than Dave Youngman. Dave Youngman is not Charlie Figge. Dave Youngman is not even Alan Kittleman in the District 5 spot. He's an intellectual lightweight. He's a Trump Republican, dyed in the wool through and through, head of the Trump campaign in Howard County in 2016. I did work with David on getting a couple people elected to the school board in 2014. Two of the three, the two who I really helped get elected the most, are now no longer even on the school board. And he's a hard right conservative. And I'd rather have 5 Democrats on the council. And does that mean that we cool our jets with some of the development that goes on here? Or more importantly, does it mean that Howard County land and Howard County real estate goes at the premium in which it should, and we make stronger deals that are more environmentally friendly, more favorable to Howard County, that actually do speak to issues of affordable housing, rather than just basically being the bare minimums in all of these proposed developments that developers can get away with and then still obtain their tax breaks or their funding availability from whatever mechanism they're using. That's what it means. It will make, I believe that having that 5th Democrat will have made governing Howard County harder. And you know what? That's okay, because I also perceive that will make Howard County better. But that's not what we have now. Now we're back to the rubber stamp of everything, under the sun is going to get approved 3-2. And we will see come 2026, because, I believe that Howard County as a population is more in favor of restricted growth than the very licentious policies on growth that we have currently. I believe if Howard County residents understood what goes on, that there are only a few developers, builders, engineering companies who really even do business with Howard County. And this is why business always gets skewed towards, certain entities who, again, are represented by certain entities and are advised by certain entities. So it creates this whole cash flow between lots of corporations and individuals. All I'm saying is let's spread the wealth a little bit. Let's have a little bit more competition. Let's put some new players in the game. We might like it. Maybe the results would not be better for Howard County, but damn it, it might be. Why not try? Those people, they also control, as you said, a lot of the purse strings in the Democratic Party. And so that's why David Youngman, as obnoxious and as vile and as hardcore right-wing as he is acceptable. And I find that so disheartening. It really just, it makes me sad. truth be told, it makes me sad, especially when I see some of the most liberal people I know, some of the most pro diversity, inclusion, equity people I know, people who supported candidates like Jansen Evelyn, people who supported they are cool with the fact that Calvin Ball needs David Youngman to provide that third vote. I just can't deal with that. I just can't agree with that. I can't subscribe to it. I have a problem with it.
Yeah. Well, as I was saying, I don't know if you had gotten back on or if you were still offline, but it's not the Democrats are perfect on the national level, the state level, the local level. I did not mention the other race that got a lot of attention, Howard County, the Board of Ed race. I believe it looks like Doctors Chen and McCoy are going to be victorious. I know there's Adler is definitely gone, and rightfully so. Speaking of the Trump wing, and I could get into a whole thing about education with some of the recent events in Virginia, South Carolina. Won't get into them, but let's just say that Tootie Adler is not needed on our board. So we'll see which two of the three come out. Clayton Newberger, they may have certified that one as well, but he was pretty close. But I know they were still counting on Friday. But anyway, the one thing I do want to talk about with the Board of Ed, because it ties into what we just talked about, and that's the recently proposed legislation from Senator Clarence Lamb and Delegate Courtney Watson about changing the makeup of the board, which just got changed thanks to legislation put forth by Vanessa Atterbury, which, oh, by the way, I was always a supporter of that proposal from Delegate Atterbury. I thought it was the right thing and the right approach. I do not support what Senator Lamb and Delegate Watson are putting out there. Bill, this might be another podcast with our former co-host Jason Booms, because he wrote extensively in his Spartan Considerations blog about everything that stunk to high heaven about this proposed legislation. I am disappointed in Senator Lamb. I thought he was better than that. I'm not shocked that Courtney Watson was behind this, because it's just on brand for her. I think it's a pure power play. I think it is all that is wrong with politics. I think it is all that is wrong with Howard County Democratic politics. I wish that Delegate Atterbury would get in front of a mic or a computer screen or something and say, this is bullshit and I will have no part of it. I don't know that she will do that or not, but this is everything that's wrong. And it points to the exact thing you were talking about with maybe the quiet cheering for Dave Youngman, that power, there's a desire to concentrate it and keep it in one place and not allow it to go to those who should have it. And that's you, me, and the rest of the county as far as the citizens. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We could get into it on another day, but
so super briefly, the legislation is a local bill in Howard County that would take the 7-member Board of Education, which is now elected 5 by the council districts and 2 at large, and make those 2 at-large seats county executive appointments, which is, I was talking to a friend of mine earlier this week about it, and I said to her, well, that's kind of ballsy, because that assumes that there's going to be this structural 4-1 advantage for the Democrats on the county council ad infinitum. And it assumes that there's going to be a Democratic county executive ad infinitum. And the reason why I say the 4-1 advantage for the county council is because, and I'm, again, worst kept political secret in maybe in the state of Maryland, the Howard County nonpartisan Board of Education races are very much partisan. And if you look at those results, they very much track the county council elections. And so if we have 4 Democratic county council members, stands to reason that we will have 4 Board of Education members who skew to the liberal side. What does that mean? That even if you have a Republican county executive, you would have a 5th district person who would probably be more conservative, and then you would have that Republican county executive appoint 2 more conservative people. And so you would have a 4-3 liberal split. And that would be a best case scenario for conservatives. I don't think we should always make that assumption that there's a structural 4-1 majority, nor a perpetual county executive who's Democratic. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it beyond that, other than to say I agree with you. I don't think this is a good idea. I do believe that this is not what people are voting for, are looking at when they're like, Democrats, please protect us from these crazy people.
Right.
And we'll talk more about it at length, but we're coming up on time anyway. So again, we will reserve this for a future podcast.
Yeah. A worthy conversation. Definitely. And like I said, maybe we bring back the OG to let him.
Well, he has a couple more appearances left in him. We also have the awards show come February to plan and plot. So, Steve, this has been a momentous podcast. I'm not sure if it's momentous in a good way. It has been replete with technical errors and even featured the first trip into limbo from one of the co-hosts, that being myself. Can you say anything that could just put a cap on this oil well?
No, I think we just need to get out of here before something else goes wrong.
Yeah, I'm afraid my phone's going to start sparking. And then I'm going to have a stump. I'm going to be lying on a stump. I'm going to be like Jason Pierre-Paul with 3 of my fingers blown off. And like a foof in my face, just poof. And then all of a sudden my face is all sooty. And then like that MASH episode when Henry Blake got blown up in the latrine. And he had the commode around his neck and he just looked at everybody and went, boom.
Yeah.
Just like that.
On that note,
that was actually Alan Kittleman Tuesday night of the election.
Boom.
He woke up with a commode around his neck and just went boom.
Oh.
Because his latrine got blown up.
Well, it's a good euphemism for his campaign, so what the hell?
Anyway, for Steve Hunt, my name is Bill Woodcock. This has been one hell of an episode of Forward Maryland. Thank you for watching or listening. And we go from the frying pan into the fire next week because we have our special Survivor Series edition on the link between pro wrestling, politics, business, and life itself. To paraphrase Ted Lasso, pro wrestling is life. And you'll learn more about that next week. So for Steve, I'm Bill. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.